Hello there, I'm Jason Bull, and this is Life After News. Today my guest is Tony Morrison. He worked at CNN, Good Morning America, before transitioning to the nonprofit world and working at GLAAD. And just this summer, he launched his own media company focused on digital video. All right, Tony, thank you so much for joining me today. You have had you're at a very exciting time in your life after news. I want to get into that. But first, you didn't really come from a traditional background. So what drew you to the news business and how did you get into the news business?
Yeah, well, wow, what a packed question that is. I I gotta say, the business drew me in, and as we'll
It
get
does.
yeah, and as we'll get into, what I'm doing today was never part of the plan. News was never part of the plan. Working in media was never part of the plan. I actually went to college for business. I was a business major and failed finance 4 times. So I literally can't count. I'm fully right-brained. And I got into photography in college and ended up moving to New York to pursue a runway and fashion photography, shooting Fashion Week. And then using sort of that craft to say yes to a production job at What Would You Do? So John Quinones effectively was my first TV boss and TV dad, I will say.
Wow.
And that was just a summer season. They were crewing up, and a friend knew I was working in the creative space and was looking for a gig. And they brought me on, and wow, what an amazing opportunity that was, because what would you do with hidden cameras? A mix of both reality and news all meshed in one. And it was I gotta say that the best place to learn the ins and outs of TV and production and news and all of it. That opportunity led to an overnight gig at CNN when we were launching New Day. I still say we from time to time, I notice as well. Never truly leaves you, does it, Jason?
Correct. It never leaves us. Uh,
Yeah. And
so
this
what was the biggest surprise of coming in? I mean, you were kind of in a creative world with photography. What was the biggest surprise about the kind of the fast pace and the speed of the news organizations and how quickly people move and turn, particularly in the day of or day of news cycle?
Yeah, I was just saying, I feel like the business called me in because I was immediately just like, oh, this is so far out of the mold of what I thought communications was, or TV production and broadcast majoring in college, to be really in it and to have worked my way from just a standby videographer or someone at a stakeout position, catching people coming into diners or running down the sidewalk, getting releases from folks, walking through camera shots to working at cable news overnights, and then went on to GMA for 7 years there before moving to nonprofit. But
So
I
let's back up a quick second. So you got into with the John Quinones show because you were a photographer already. So you were like helping them shoot the steakhouse and the hidden camera.
yeah, they just needed
Oh, that makes
they
sense.
needed a PA to just drive box trucks and do coffee runs way back when. And I will say this was well before like pistachio milk and all the different orders we have today. So coffee orders were much easier. But I've always was just so turned on by the complexity of the production, but also the heart in it from all the producers involved. So I always found news production specifically over other productions in television to be impactful because I've always sort of delivered work and craft with intent, I guess you can say. I didn't have this kind of language back then, but looking back now, I think that's definitely the through line of just creating, content and telling stories with some purpose attached to it.
Absolutely, and that's what we I think we all were drawn to it, and also that kind of the camaraderie of the newsroom and the team aspects of it. That was my first thing that drew me in. I'm like, these are my people. These
Yeah,
are my people. I I
and
love that we all work together, and it's very. I don't think people realize how collaborative it actually is, and
totally.
everybody plays a role, and you have to hit your deadline every multiple deadlines every day.
I'm so glad you brought that up because honestly, I get asked all the time, what was my favorite job or role, and I don't like to use the favorites line, but I will say like my time at CNN on the overnight shift for the fact that there's so few of you, but there's enough of you to get a show on the air and you're all in it together. You're all going through the overnight shifts together. You're going through like the parallel of like the life challenges because of those hours together. And if it's not like other newsrooms and friends in other newsrooms on the shifts, you're friends with the other overnight people, whether it's like the McDonald's folks across the street or at the diner or nurses. Like there is some sort of camaraderie there for sure. And I always like to think make I learned how to produce at CNN. I learned how to make good TV or experiential TV at GMA. And as we'll get to, my time at GLAAD taught me how to make impact with both of those things.
That's great. I love that progression. So you went to GMA, and how was that different than New Day?
Oh my gosh, network versus cable. Let me tell you. I was an opens producer for a long time
Mhm.
on the back half of my time at CNN. So
So
it
explain tell us what that means.
Yeah, so it's cutting what I took as cutting a short film of 30 to 90 seconds to sell your entire hour in that time. So I was pulling, clips from every top story, and clipping it in a way that had to make sense, but also had to hook that audience. I guess I was the original TikToker back in the day.
That's a good way. We should have thought about it that way, or we should think about TikTok as that way too.
Totally. I got a lot out of that. I learned how to edit, honestly, in Avid and Premiere just by sitting in that edit bay and watching my editor just like his hands on that keyboard day after day after day for years. And I learned how to edit really that way by watching him. And so I got a lot out of it just by, of course, learning how to do the job well, but also taking a lot of time to sit in the back and observe and really soak it all in and raise my hand when I was really able to.
For sure, that's really good observation and good advice. Pay attention to what's going on around you, learn from it, learn from what you see. Sometimes you learn what to do, sometimes you learn what not to do,
Definitely that.
and then yeah, and then ask questions for sure.
Yeah.
So it's how long were you at GMA for?
7 years. And it's from working and for context, I was working at CNN pre-Trump CNN, so it was a different world. It was a different just energy in news overall. But
Mhm.
coming to GMA, I grew up in Florida, so I became very quickly the Florida slash Disney World correspondent. I grew up in Orlando, so given the parent company of it all at Disney had a lot of connections across the company already, and that proved itself valuable whenever we needed to shoot in Florida or other Disney properties, ESPN and such as well. But it was, yeah, I think I was saying earlier, like creating experiences, experiential TV versus delivering headlines in a way that caught people up or taught people something. There's still that news thread, but now you're producing summer concerts, you're going to Disney World, you're working on Super Bowl stuff. So it was a really great way to kind of be part of, I I would venture to say every like major news story for the past 10 years I've had some sort of touch point with, whether it's, writing copy or delivering a script. And that's, to think about it through that lens is um I'm humbled by that, but there's a lot of stories that are told, just a reminder of the importance, but also just the drive you have to kind of stay in it.
Yeah, and the thing I do love about morning news, particularly, is that you're obviously doing a lot of good journalism. It can't. I always said it just can't be all doom and gloom. You have to give our viewers something else, and sometimes it's aspirational, sometimes it's just fun. So it is good to have that experience because I think people who work on like more serious or later broadcasts, they don't always get that experience, and I think
Yeah.
that's really helpful when you decide to go do something else?
Yeah. There's just two things that I was reminded as you were saying that. I think to me, the biggest difference in network morning news and my time in cable was, and again, touching back on that experience, the major differentiator is that touch point with the viewer. Whether it's like a giveaway or deals and steals or a huge production to give back to a community or a community hero or to do a breakfast in bed with a very deserving mom for Mother's Day. Those are really, really amazing opportunities to connect with viewers, but also to make TV like what it is. And I was actually brought on to GMA to run their social media. I was brought on as a social media editor. And this was a time, rest in peace, Twitter, where it was just show clips and cat videos. That was what we stocked the accounts with. But I got to ride that wave of growing that entire line of business for a major news network and launching the Snapchat and Snapchat shows and branded content and then eventually streaming and OTT. So I really lucked out. And again, that all found me. I was kind of in that vortex, just like looking for fun cat videos. But really got into uh, becoming the person folks look to tell stories in different ways to new audiences. And that continues to today.
I mean, I think that's really interesting because social media definitely changed the game and the business, and it forced people to be more personal too, and kind of share a little look behind the curtain, if you will, or even
Yeah.
some people will go all the way and show their entire lives are out there. How was were you how did you have to push people into that sort of space, or were they open to it, or how did you kind of negotiate that, or figure it out how far to go, and what parts to share and what parts not to share?
Yeah, I mean, there was a range for sure, and the directives certainly came that sounded like make us a viral video, go do that thing.
Right.
To let's be smart about how we do this on TV. To oh, do we want to join this new platform as a brand account and helping to not just go through all the red tape and the corporate steps there, but to also help create those steps for when we have to do this again for apps and teams down the road.
Uh,
So helping to build that infrastructure was really cool, and just to be out of it. Never completely, but even just the TikTok world is so like I can barely keep up myself these days. I don't know how we did it. Back when it was just like two or three people. When I started at GMA, I was one of three, at most
oh,
three social producers for GMA and the morning shift there. When I left, there were probably 35 or 40 people.
and were you just doing the brand accounts, or were you helping the talent as well?
Both. And to that point, it's, oh yeah, I got a lot of asks from talent for sure of just help me do this, help me do that. But it was very symbiotic. If they were very open, most still are, and most are still are open to taking feedback or getting an ask to make a video. 'Cause it's practice for them, but they know that there's a necessity behind it for the brand or show or for a story. I like to say I was always kept in good graces with folks because I was in charge of making you look good online. So you had to do what I ask, make me
I
happy.
I suspect George and Robin were very different.
Oh, very different voices, very different times of day. You have to catch them. But no, I loved working there, and George and Robin are just titans, icons in the industry. And
That's
Robin was actually this my first 2 weeks on the job. She was the first one to say my name by name in the hallway. We're cutting the corner after a show, and she's like, "Are you Tony?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, Robin Roberts knows who I am." So we'll never forget that. And Miss Robin is the same on cam as she is, at 3 a.m. That's what we love about her.
Yeah, absolutely. She seems that way for sure. I had a sports anchor who never knew my name unless he was mad. Suddenly, it came to him when he was angry.
I had a few of those. They will remain unnamed, but had a few of those as well in the cable news era for sure. But again, very different energy and uh, workflow. We'll leave it at there.
So after, 7 successful years there, what made you decide you wanted to, leave and do something else?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't out also in the newsroom
Oh,
until my time at GMA. And then I did start to notice that I didn't really see a lot of myself in pitch rooms or boardrooms or the newsroom overall, and especially the stories we were telling outside of legislative issues or just news of day, or a tragic story about LGBTQ people. So it was a gradual thing, but I was able to help um, create a space for more inclusive stories to be told on the air. And by virtue of, I guess, granting some permission to do that in this space, all of a sudden, all of these gay reporters are popping up out of nowhere who have been here and who want to help. And I'm just like, okay, great, we're in this together. So it's just, one thing led to another. And we launched the first LGBTQ ERG. I penned a personal essay about my HIV status. But we were launching all sorts of really amazing Pride programming that were network firsts, Disney firsts. So working in that regard, I'm really proud of being able to stand up a lot of that programming, and that ERG that we started just got uh, honored this year as well. So the legacy lives on. It's so exciting to see. But a lot of that work also was in tandem with GLAAD and HRC and others, Trevor Project, just helping to facilitate, who are those expert voices in this space and how can those groups and a newsroom work together to create more not more advocacy, but more experiential
okay.
television that reached new audiences from that lens, but also helped the anchors and reporters behind the scenes tell their stories with more focus and sharpness because they were given permission to focus on some of their personal experiences too, and to connect with those audiences. So there's a lot of layers there. But in that, a conversation came up with the team at GLAAD to do some of that work that I was doing at GMA across all newsrooms.
Uh-huh.
And it was obviously not a job that had existed before or something that I thought of. And again, just raised my hand and was like, yeah, let's go do this for a while and see where it pans out. So consulting for everyone from Hollywood to publishing and news networks and local media to enhance how they tell stories and to make sure that LGBTQ people are part of mainstream conversations became a real focal point for me very quickly.
I wanna back up just a little bit.
Yeah.
You talked about when your HIV status, and I feel like, unfortunately, and I feel bad that you had to go through this because it's like coming out all over again on a whole
Yeah.
different level. I mean, coming out can be difficult and scary, and then coming out with about your HIV status is a kind of a whole nother level, and it's very personal, it's very private, and so what compelled you to do that? And thank you for doing it because it destigmatizes the whole idea behind it and the whole idea that you have to hide this status.
Yeah, as I look back, it was definitely something I felt like I needed to do for me. Was also in the backdrop of COVID. And so we had a lot of time to myself. I feel like working in news during COVID was a very fascinating time because you had to be very mindful about the time you took for yourself. I feel that COVID happen sort of quickly because a lot of us who are, essential workers, not to diminish, the medical field especially, but news is a 24-hour operation, and in that time we were working 24/7, and you weren't really taking days off. You were in it, and working was a distraction from the pandemic. But that said, I was really faced with a lot of time with myself and was thinking through how, I'm advocating for all of these stories. I'm getting approvals and working to ensure through all the standards protocols that our anchors and reporters can tell their stories in ways that meets the needs of story and journalism. So doing all this work, but also at the same time being so afraid about sharing my own story. So I did feel like a little bit of a fraud for a lack of better words at the time, just because I was, representing authentic storytelling and I had this shadow in my own life. And I guess the space that we cultivated in that newsroom also really helped me to be more open about it and to open up myself to a group of people I knew who were supportive of me, and not just my story. So, all that considered, I actually worked on this is like a 6 to 7 month ordeal, I will say. And I first sent the first draft to one of my editors on the digital team, and of course, I had to, get approved through the Disney lawyers and high level standards folks. And, we don't really do personal essays or op-eds. And I was just waiting for that email to come back to just like red pen everything. But to my surprise, and it still makes me a little emotional, but that draft came back with notes from them asking me to add more things
Oh,
into
wow.
the story and essay. The red lines in there were tell us more about this, explain this more, expand this paragraph, move this down, move this up. And I was like, oh, okay, this is something I have to do now,
Uh-huh.
because it was also welcomed from a high level as something that again was could be useful to our audience. And
Uh-huh.
so I think when we talk about the challenges of, or quote unquote challenges of DEI and sort of trying to sweep our own life experiences under the rug, for the sake of someone else or a company to diminish ourselves, um, I think we deny, especially in journalism, we start to deny our mandate to tell authentic stories by being authentic yourself. And when we start to abandon ourselves, I
Uh,
think, we sort of abandon that journalistic mandate.
Absolutely. That's amazing. So I have a two-part question. So what did you expect the reaction to be, and what was the actual reaction?
I didn't think people would care or want to read it. I think, again, I did it for myself, and
Uh-huh.
I wanted to sort of um, break off of the chains, I guess. Um, eh, that's how I'd probably envision it. But yeah, I was welcomed with a lot of love and support. And when I started getting like emails from people and Queerty who also wanted to have me talk more about the story and why, I was definitely caught off guard. And I remember one of the first interviews I did, I was just like so in my head because I'm very much a behind the camera person. I am not an on air. I like it behind the camera. I will deliver your scripts sort of like under the desk here. So having to do those on cam, it was terrifying, Jason. And I remember
Mhm.
I would, like, look back at some of my first interviews, and I'm just like, "What is going on?" I'm like, you can tell I'm definitely self-editing while I'm speaking. But to be able to share that with the world was incredible. To have people want more
Uh,
was really, just something I couldn't put my finger on in terms of, like, how that made me feel. And, that sort of followed me into my time at GLAAD, and I'm like, if what resonated with people was, I guess, the authenticity and the honesty. I
uh,
had a lot of non-LGBTQ people reach out to me and say
uh,
how impactful it was for them to read and how inspiring it was to, you know, go through something like that and, turn out the way you are and to have the joy that you have for life after life has handed you some pretty tough cards. I think that's the lesson
uh,
for everybody is there's always a way forward. You just have to take that step for yourself.
yeah. That's amazing. Was that a turning point to for you to think about going into more advocacy work at GLAAD?
Yeah, I think the through line for me at GLAAD was to be able to tell authentic stories again, but to really encourage other people in their communities to harness that energy for folks.
Uh-huh.
So it was interesting because at GLAAD I was doing a lot of internal communications and external, and doing communications for GLAAD programs, but also reaching out to folks in the community who needed help getting connected to shoot a new film or to get things submitted in for the GLAAD Media Awards. So it was pretty uh it was pretty all encompassing of a role.
For people who don't know, GLAAD is an anti-defamation league for LGBTQ plus people, and focuses. I feel like focuses a lot on representation of LGBT people in media,
Yeah.
and that's what's so important. So the skills you learned in news at GMA and CNN definitely translated directly into that business, I would assume.
Yeah, so GLAAD is exactly what you explained it as. It's also helping to train and resource advocates and community leaders and just your everyday person who wants to stand up for the community and help them tell their stories in media, whatever that might be to them. It could be video games, it could be in a novel, it could be in TV. But I will say real quick, one of my um fondest memories. I got an email from just a sweet journalist outside of Memphis, Tennessee, I think it was, somewhere in Tennessee, and working on a story and wanted a little help from GLAAD, confirming sources, etc., and getting connected with some expert voices in this space. And after getting to know him for a little bit, I quickly realized he really was the only out LGBTQ person at that entire station. And especially these affiliate stations are already very small, and lean. So I really loved being able to help him tell not only an important story for his community, but to his point, wanting to weave his experience and queer people and queer story into a mainstream story. I think he's moved on to a bigger market now, which, that's the goal. We love that.
Right.
But yeah, that was what it was all about for me. It was less about me doing the work, and it was very much about helping to resource others in the space, in the industry.
She started my career in Memphis at a TV station in Memphis.
Oh,
Yeah. I wasn't out, but this was also the early '90s. I was out toward the end to
yeah.
most people, but not necessarily to everyone. But yeah, like again, there was a very long time ago. I'm old.
No.
You told our mutual friend Mark Malkin at Variety that you left a dream job, GLAAD, to build the dream. So, what is the dream? What is the dream you're building now?
I feel like the dream changes daily at this point. But no, and shout out to Mark Malkin, just an incredible entertainment journalist and also
Great person, just a nice person.
incredible human, and also shared his story about living with HIV, and we've got to connect, and I feel like he's mentored me as a journalist. So thank you, Mark. Out there in LA doing the work. I was seeing the need for especially digital video. I would say that's definitely my fluency in this space. New media, telling new stories. So launching new platforms and new digital content ideas, sometimes expensive ideas, falls out of the scope of a nonprofit space, and the team at GLAAD and I, we talked about me moving off of staff so I can do a lot of these passion projects on the side while also doing the important work that GLAAD is doing. And that's where the Morrison Media Group took root and we launched this summer. So I'll say the group of it all is being able to tap into this network. I will say to you and to folks listening, that's really all of our friends.
100.
you know so it's literally my business plan is getting all my friends, hiring all my friends and getting all of them jobs. But there's a conversation too right now about especially in corporate leadership and across the entertainment industries, just across the board of leadership gatekeeping a little bit,
Uh-huh.
the leadership spaces and the boardrooms. And I think a really great example right now, honestly, is the Red Lobster CEO. If you're following that story, he's in his 30s and has just changed the game for both the brand, the company, the kind of content and conversation they put out, but the type of leadership that a company like that can have. And I share that because this network of us that are out here are just waiting to get in there and do the work. It's incredible people. So the business plan for now is for me to help discover a story with a client or create a story that's impactful, and then to take that to said network and then change impact with that story and that network together. So that's the group of it all. I have some really pie in the sky ideas, as you can tell, for the media company of it all. But I would love to, what I'll say about on that, without getting too in the weeds and too technical, is there is a real gap with digital video in the nonprofit and LGBTQ outlet publishers sector. There's a huge lack of, well, obviously everyone knows that there's a need for this, right?
Mhm.
But not everyone is in a position uh, to budget
Uh-huh.
full-time teams and production, like, the kinds of resources, financial and technical, that goes into just a single, interview shoot. So to
Right.
stand up a team to pump out digital video across all of these spaces is a big feat, and it's not cheap. So I'm looking into a solve to help fill that gap for folks, because again, it's all about impactful and authentic storytelling. And the more access we have to each other's stories, we have to be able to also back up that access and distribute those stories in a way that's impactful and powerful too.
So it sounds like uh, lots of companies have this image that they have built for many years, but it's not necessarily who they actually are. And you're trying to help them tell more of their authentic stories and who they really are.
Yeah, totally. I
Okay.
mean, I love the idea of having some sort of like a queer news wire. There are iterations of that across these spaces, but to super serve our community in a way that provides just ready to post stories in a digital format, in various formats, really, out to the outlets and companies and organizations that need it most, is very top of mind for me.
That's amazing. But I mean, this is a big step going from working for someone else and getting a paycheck every 2 weeks to starting your own your own company. I mean, that's a big step where what what made you just finally decide to take that leap or take that plunge?
Yeah, well, I'm a notoriously terrible saver, but I have been saving and for something like this, and strategically working with folks in the background. And this is something that I've been wanting to do for literally years, and it's something that I didn't really voice to folks until this year. And the opportunities just really aligned this summer to where there were more pros than cons. And I would just brought myself, just saying that out loud, I just brought myself back to that version of myself that moved to New York City.
Oh.
He just did it and figured it out and had something of a plan, Um, but that was also the feeling in my gut that I felt with this, and that was my guidepost of like, okay, this is the right direction, because I feel like that person
Yeah.
who moved to New York. And to my surprise, Jason, it's all working out. So far, so good. If it's one thing I love to do, well, it's to create mystery. I feel like I did that pretty well in sharing.
Well,
Um,
you definitely created some intrigue.
yeah, definitely. But no, it's all coming together, reaching out to the right folks. People are finding me. We're making plans. Hopefully we will start changing the game. but just the act of doing this and having these
Oh, yeah.
conversations with people, I'm seeing, experiencing is already making a huge difference in the space.
That's great. And I actually feel similarly about starting this podcast and doing this and the kind of business I'm trying to develop as well. I feel like myself that I was when I was, in my 20s.
Yeah.
And I think that's really exciting. The other thing you said, which is a kind of an undercurrent in the podcast too, is you have to save your money. You have to be prepared to do
Yeah.
something on your own. If you're planning to leave or think you're going to get laid off or whatever, you definitely have to have that and that cash of money to be able to maintain your life and to
Oh.
do what you have to do. So that's super smart.
Well, I have the benefit of really working for myself isn't new because when I moved to New York, I had essentially a photography firm, and I was
Wow.
left this out before, but I was shooting like Disney weddings, and I was doing destination weddings, and had a pretty good freelance gig going. And so, really, in launching this media company, it's obviously very different. It's more robust. I definitely need help. It can't be an all me thing. But really, I just took all of those LLC pieces and paperwork from my photography business years ago and just updated everything and did all of that paperwork and admin, and all of the admin stuff is really killing me right now, but it has to be done.
What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about going out on their own as well?
Oh my goodness. What would I say? Don't worry about the plan. The plan will reveal itself. You will be planned and planned for. I spoke to a group of students at Columbia recently, and I told them to just be mindful of what you feel in your body when people say things to you or react to you, or when you think about a certain direction you want or need to go. So, really honor yourself and honor the person you have been up to this point, and trust your gut, and don't worry about where your foot lands. Just take that first step forward.
That's amazing. That's amazing advice. I appreciate your time and your expertise, and I'm so looking forward to seeing what you're going to do next and how you're going to grow the Morrison Media Group. So thank you so much for your
Thank
advice
you,
and your
Jason.
wisdom.
Appreciate you. Hope to be back soon with updates, and
Yes.
appreciate you.
All right. Take care. Tony's company again is called the Morrison Media Group. I'll put a link to the website in the show notes. Also, I'll include a link to his personal essay on living with HIV. It's very good. On Thursday, we have another bonus episode focused on consolidation in the TV business and what it can mean for news operations. Let me know what you think. Follow me on Instagram at Mr. Jason Ball or at Life After News Pod. You can also connect through our website, lifeafternews.com. If you like the show, give us 5-star ratings, good reviews, and if you will, tell a friend. Until next time.